Thank you. That's such a nice voice. So how are we all doing today? We're hanging in there. So just a short introduction. I'm glad to be here today. I just really loved the keynote. I was making notes about quote. I'm a quotations person, as you will see from this from this PowerPoint. But I kind of find that they kind of give us little snippets of things that remain in our brains, which we can then pull from, which is helpful to me. Anyway, my name is Gaye Jeffers. Gender parity is very important to me. It has been at the center of my work for the past 35 years. So I'm currently a professor at UTC in theater. I've taught this, I think this is my 14th or 15th year. I can't remember. Prior to coming into academia, I worked in professional theater in Chicago and was a music video writer and producer for a number of years. So I kind of think I've seen the role of women from a lot of different angles in entertainment. And so I'm going to kind of throw a bunch of kind of factual information at you, just so we can kind of see where we really do need to focus on this. And this really hasn't grown as much as it could. Let's just say that. So let me get down here. Here's my philosophy in a nutshell. If we expand our knowledge of each other, this will lead to less judgment, which will lead to more compassion, which will lead to cultural cohesion, which will be love. So I have hope that at some point we can reach some sort of equality, but it's not going to come without work. As we heard in the keynote, there's a lot of times where words are supposed to suffice for change, but words are not boots on the ground, as they say. So let's start with, what is gender parity? So has anyone ever heard of the reference to the glass curtain? We sometimes hear about the glass ceiling, and the glass curtain is a phrase that we often hear in theater, specifically relating to just the exact same thing that we hear about as the glass ceiling in the rest of the world. So we look at gender parity as a statistical measure, and it's a way to really see numbers and to see the ratios from female to men opportunities. And from just looking at the facts, the data, if you will, we can see progress, or we can see indicators for improvement. And so it allows us to really assess gender inequity in specific areas. So instead of it being some kind of like floaty theory out there, we can look at it and go, well, no, this is what's really happening. And we can better assess it from a different point of view. So, you know, I could really talk a lot about all kinds of inequity in theater, but I was like, no, today you're focusing on just this one thing. So there's a lot to be done in many areas, but today I'm just focusing on gender parity. If I only have an hour, you know, if I had 5 hours, we could talk about all the problems of the world and I could solve them. But, you know, no one asked me to do that, so I'm sticking with my agenda for today. Okay, so here's some quotes to throw up there. Everybody pays lip service to this whole idea of doing more new plays, and nobody ever does it. Why is being female seen as having an agenda? And this is from Teresa Rebeck. She's a playwright. She is the most produced woman playwright on Broadway. She's had the most plays produced on Broadway, which is not a lot, and we'll talk more about her shortly. And then we have a quotation from August Wilson. All art is political in the sense that it serves someone's politics. So to pretend that the minute you put forth an idea, that it doesn't take on some political fuel is just not being true to yourself, because the minute you step out and shake up the status quo, you are going to remain on somebody's side or the other. So you kind of have to be really aware of that in our work in theater. So, you know, I could really talk a lot about all kinds of inequity in theater, but I was like, no, today you're focusing on just this one thing. So there's a lot to be done in many areas, but today I'm just focusing on I just I'm all about, I love theater that just entertains. I love to be entertained. I love to laugh. But even within that, there are ideas being shared. There are stereotypes being commented on or supported. There are voices that are not being heard. I mean, even in the lightest affair in theater, there are still ways that women are being disparaged or silenced, if you will, to be so bold, which I am today, apparently. Okay. So the movement to kind of protest the lack of female participation in theater really started formally in the 1960s. So in the US, from 1969 to 1975, female playwrights and directors working in regional and off-Broadway theaters was at 7%. That means 93% of theaters off-Broadway and regionally, 93% were men. That's huge. We've made a little progress, but not much. So, I mean, Broadway was barely even a percent. I mean, it wasn't even worth noting, apparently. So women really wanted to find a way to support other women actors who were tired of portraying the same stereotypes and really wanted to challenge producers, directors to stop creating theater that was insulting to women or just cut them out of the process entirely. Women's stories are more than plot devices. Our journeys need to be told. Okay, so here's some myths about women. I have to say, I really enjoyed putting this list together because I think maybe we can recognize these. So I've heard this many times: women don't write real plays. Audiences won't buy tickets to plays that they haven't heard of. If plays written by women were good, they'd get good reviews and be on Broadway. Audiences can't accept new ideas. Controversy must be avoided. We are giving our audiences what they want to see. There aren't any women directors. There aren't any women designers. Plays written by women are not family friendly. Women in theater are difficult to work with. Yeah. Any of these ring bells? Any of these you kind of go, yes, I think I have come upon those things in my journey through the theater world. And we're going to talk about these because they really are myths. And we're going to kind of get into, we got some facts to back up these things, that these are too easy. These are easy answers to excuse ourselves. And we need to dig deeper if we truly believe that gender parity is needed in theater. Okay, more quotations. The most damaging phrase in the English language is "it's always been done that way." So Grace Hopper is this amazing woman, God rest her soul, who was a computer scientist and US Navy Rear Admiral. And she was like this person who just refused to be put in a box. And she stepped forward, and she speaks truth here. Then we have Lynn Nottage, who's a wonderful playwright. The more you go to a theater and the more you hear stories you aren't necessarily familiar with, the more open you become. Yes. When a man gives his opinion, he's a man. When a woman gives her opinion, she's a bitch. You gotta love Betty Davis. And, she probably said that in the 1930s or 40s. And here we are, and we're still facing that challenge, unfortunately. That kind of makes me laugh because I can just see her saying that, in her way. Okay, so in 1978, there was a group of women in London who decided to form a protest group outside of 5 London theaters on the West End. So they asked every audience member leaving the theater that night these questions. Did the characters in the play that you just saw imply that blondes are dumb, wives nag, feminists are frustrated, whores have hearts of gold, mothers-in-law interfere, lesbians are aggressive, intellectual women are frigid, women who enjoy sex are nymphomaniacs, and older women are sexless. So this was in 1978. I think it might be interesting to bring this practice back and see if we have changed any from these questions that were asked in 1978 and compare the data. I mean, if we think about good old American comedy, I can probably bet you that at least 3 of these stereotypes are included. And we love to laugh at women. They are often the butt of jokes. And these are some pretty good, I mean, how many plays alone are based on interfering mothers-in-law or wives that nag? And so we kind of have to go back and look at women being used as characters that are plot devices when they could have their own journeys. They could have their own agency. They could be fully formed human beings. But instead, they're kind of placed in this butt of the joke scenario, which is kind of sad. But maybe we should do a protest of our own and see what happens with that. Are you with me? Yes, okay. So here's some starting of my myths debunking. So here's some quotations from a wonderful op-ed that was written by Rebecca Gilman in the Chicago Tribune in 2019. Plays written by women account for only 29% of all plays produced, a percentage that is vastly out of proportion to the number of women writing for the stage, not to mention the number of women in the general population. For directors and designers, that the statistics are a little bit better, around 37%. Why is this important? Because playwrights, directors, designers, and actors shape the stories we tell in the theater, and the stories we tell become the world we live in. Yes, 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 yes. If the stories of one group are above those of another, that signals to the world that the rest of us are not nearly as important, that when bad things happen to us, it is incidental or worse, deserved. If women's stories aren't given equal weight in popular culture, then women's stories in, say, a Senate confirmation hearing are too easily dismissed as dubious, minor, inconsequential, or confused. We think about popular culture as our escape from reality, and I really think it's the reality. It's what's creating the world in which we live. It is creating our work environments. It is teaching our young people what maybe their goals are or how they are to be. And that's, we got to fight back about that. We got to do some pushback on that. She also says, some might argue that the issue of representation is one of quality. Maybe the theaters don't produce plays by women or hire female directors or female designers because they're just not that good at what they do. It's because men's work and men's stories have been unfairly overvalued for centuries as a result of and in service to the hegemony of patriarchy that has excluded multitudes of talented women. You never even got to hear their stories, much less assess their talent. There is nothing more painful to me than knowing a lot of women who have such wonderful things to give in theater, to create, to design, to direct, to write, and they just can't seem to get through that glass curtain. And until we kind of shed some light on this and go, no, this is the reality. It's not that we're not good enough. It's not that we don't have the training. It's that the opportunity to get through the door is denied us because of a lot of stereotypes and that we are difficult. Don't let me go off because, it's possible. Okay. But I encourage you, if you're interested, that the whole op-ed is really fuel for my fire, which I probably shouldn't read it too much because, just gets me riled up. Okay. Here's some statistics from the 2019 Broadway season. Because of COVID, this is the most complete stats that we have right now at this moment. So these are 37 new productions. That doesn't mean the plays that have been running on Broadway for years. These are the 37 new plays or productions that opened in the 2018-19 season. And that included 21 plays, 13 musicals, and 3 special events. So of all of those 37 productions, there were 365 characters in these productions. 61% of those characters were male, 32% were female, 0.27% were non-binary, and 6.73% were unspecified gender. So that means the number of male characters was nearly double that of female characters, which when you break that down to the work life, that means women were, men had twice as many opportunities to be cast in a play on Broadway than women. Over 68% of critics identify as male and statistically give preference to plays containing characters that share their gender. So a critic at the New York Times described a play written by Teresa Rebeck, who's the most produced female playwright on Broadway, as a feminist diatribe. He accused her of having a man-hating agenda. And she doesn't like to talk about this. She will not mention this critic. She tries to put this behind her because it was very painful to her. And she stated, "I never had an agenda. I just wanted to write plays that told the truth." So in our world, women who have thoughts, women who have opinions, are kind of under suspicion a lot more than men who can just say whatever they want. So when we're looking at plays, and I'll talk about this in a minute too, we have to, if we're just reading reviews, don't do that. Look for the bias there because it's going to be there. So the next column, this is a lot of numbers, I know, but I just like, this needs to be just seen. So a total of 196 directors, choreographers, writers, and designers were hired for these 37 new productions. 7 of the 37 productions had no women in those positions. 6 had 50% or more. So when you look down this list, it just makes you want to really reach out and be supportive of women who are trying to break into directing or designing or even carpentry or electrics, because their jobs are there. They're just not being seen. There's a disconnect going on there. I mean, the only one of those categories in which women had a higher percentage was wardrobe and costume designers slightly. But everything else is pretty much swayed to the male side. Does this surprise anybody? It's kind of hard to see it in black and white though, and go, wow, no wonder the Me Too movement is so rooted in entertainment, because there's so few women. We are the minority. We are the subset of some other bigger subset of some other bigger subset, which can't we just all be in the same set? That's all I'm saying. Isn't it possible that we could do that? Okay, let me flip on over here. So this is from a quotation from Marcia Norman, playwright, if you don't know of her, recently retired from Juilliard, I think, teaching playwriting. She says, communities must insist that critics be removed who prove they cannot judge the work of women without snide condescension and dismissive ire. We need more women critics, and we need them to write without the expectation that a woman's work will be less significant than that of a man. And I mean, how powerful are critics? I mean, even in Hollywood, they're powerful. We look to them to tell us what is good and what is bad. So if 68% of the critics in entertainment in America are white men who prefer statistically plays or movies or films or TV that represent their gender identity, then we gotta even out those statistics somehow. And there are some women critics who do not also favor, or I think equally treat women playwrights. And some of them have been dismissed because sometimes I think they have to prove that they can write like men and hate on women, that is somehow the acceptable form and that makes you serious or good at what you do. But we just need a fair shake sometimes. She also said in a speech from 2009, Marsha Norman still, Broadway plays written by women earn on average 18% more than those written by men. You never hear this. Plays by women sell on an average 3,538 more seats per week than do those written by men. So why, with so much money to be made and so many audiences to please, does the American theater resign its women writers to readings and development? Why do the critics correct, condescend, and admonish women playwrights as if they were schoolgirls trying and failing to write like men? That myth about women don't go see plays written by women. Women buy over half of the theater seats in our country. We are the purchasers. So why would we not want to buy tickets to plays in which we might perhaps be the protagonist, or who perhaps might be a fully developed woman, if you will. So it just kind of debunks that whole thing of people don't want to buy that, because that's just a way to keep the dominant culture dominant, from my point of view. Here's a great quote from Gloria Steinem. We've begun to raise daughters more like sons, but few have the courage to raise our sons more like our daughters. So I pulled up some data from people who are receiving graduate degrees in theater. And in 2019, 62.6% of MFAs were awarded to women. And there's a couple of breakdowns that a couple of different types of graduate programs. I mean, NYU, that's staggering. And now that we've just seen the job market into which they are going, that's it's just not equitable in the least. Twice as many women have degrees coming out as men. So we have to ask, why are they not getting hired in their field of expertise? I mean, we know that lighting design was basically begun by two women. That computerized lighting design was not a male-dominated thing. That came about by women. And if you think about lighting in theater, it's a very emotional discipline. You are dealing with feelings and emotion and instincts and things that we just kind of do because that's how we live our lives. Not to be hugely stereotypical, but and now that field is turned over to men too. So Ruth Rebeck says again, it's time to hear both sides, to hear all voices, to build a culture where stories are told by both men and women. We're not saying we don't want to hear the stories of men or anybody else. We're saying, can we not hear everyone? Can we not have a more equitable playing field? And she says that is the way the planet is going to survive. And it's the way we are going to survive. To keep denying people a voice, to put people off, to put them in the back seat, to silence them, does not create health. It does not create a way for us all to acknowledge one another. And so we're kind of just stuck in this place of conflict. And perhaps if we heard more stories, we could get out of our conflict. I'm hopeful. So where's our education in theater? What are we teaching young women about the value of story? So I pulled up kind of a general list of musicals and plays from 2018 to 2020 in American high schools. These are the most produced plays and musicals. And I highlighted those that were written or had some or co-written by women. And these are pretty much, a play might fall on and off, but this is pretty much the list every year from what I gathered from my research. So we've got 4 women who've collaborated on musicals, and we've got 1 woman who wrote a play and 1 woman who's a collaborator. And, William Shakespeare still is the most produced playwright in America. I don't quite personally, I think he's taking up too many slots, that there could be a need to give up a slot every now and again for a writer that was more, not even contemporary, but a woman or another marginalized voice. That's an unpopular feeling, I know, but I do feel that way if we're being authentic. Not that I don't like Shakespeare, but we need to have room for others. And it's probably time to do that. I can count the number of times I've seen all of these plays. I've directed some of these plays. But do we have to see them again? Is it really important that we see them again? Can we not trust that we can move on? That we could open up the door for other voices to speak? I'm hoping we can. Okay. So this is a worldwide concern. This is not just an American concern. So there's a group, the International Center for Women Playwrights, and they work to encourage theaters to produce 50-50 parity in their theaters. So that if you do 50%, if you have a 4-play season, 2 plays should be written by men, 2 by women. Like, let's try to get this going. So I've worked personally really hard to try to get this idea to become part of how we look at our work. It's not easy, but it's worthy. So I just put up a list of some theaters in our country in 2017 who did this. And there are a lot of heavy hitters who are working towards this, and I have to say, I'm proud that, we were one of 2 universities in our country mentioned. And we can't really make huge progress if we don't start somewhere. So can we not start with just this idea that what if we really made an effort to look at plays written by women and really include them, and it not just be a special thing like, well, we could do a women's play during Women's History Month, or, we can't keep doing that. We need to be integrated into the real thing, if you will. So this work is not just here, it's happening everywhere. So how to be proactive? How can we do this? So here's some pointers. When choosing a play to produce, look specifically for plays written by women. Be fearless. Trust contemporary ideas of women. You're going to get backlash. I can tell you right now. Push forward. Insist. Next thing, it's really important. Read the play, not a review or a synopsis. And if your colleagues or peers or people you work with just want to read reviews or synopses, refuse to let that happen. Theater critics are largely white men. They will not understand that the work of women is just as important and should be judged fairly. Implicit bias must always be considered, hands down. So you can't just read reviews. You may be missing out on something that might really touch you, your audience, or whatever organization you're working with. If you sit on the board of a theater, look at the mission statement. Are you supporting the mission, or are you supporting the tastes of board members? If you're afraid to rock the boat, perhaps it's time to get out of the water. If you're seriously sitting on an organization and you have things in your mission statement about inclusiveness, and you're not doing that practically, then that's not helping. That's pretending like you're doing something when you're really not. So if you're serious about gender parity, if you're serious about hearing all the stories, then insist. It's going to take work. You're going to catch a lot of flack, but it's worth it. Search for women to direct and design. Don't settle for the myths. They're not here. There's nobody here. We can't. Populate your creative teams with women. Break the mold. Break up the boys club. There are women who are trained, who are talented, who are worthy. Quit ignoring them. I'm preaching to the choir, but I mean, there are new ideas out there that would just really enrich your organization, your productions, your life. So why not at least try people out? Break the mold. Hold yourself and others accountable. Commit. Denounce misogyny. Commit to the voices of women. And heal your institutions. You know, the keynote was talking about this earlier. The longer we hold on to the status quo, the more sicker we become, because it becomes very frustrating. And it seems like all we're doing is holding people down. So let's just stop that. I love the keynote and analogy of you're trying to patch a wall with a part of the foundation. It's like, you can't do that. Like, that doesn't make sense. And so sometimes we are giving a lot of lip service instead of putting our ideas into action. Resources for finding plays written by women. Remember, if you're only looking for plays that are written by women that are published, it takes a lot to get a play published, which means you usually have to have a production, which usually has to get good reviews. So right there, you got two problems. So there's a list called Kilroy's List. You can go on their website, kilroys.org. This is a little snippet from their website. They are a collective of playwrights, directors, and producers in LA and New York. And they began to be proactive. So they solicited women from around the country. I'm a nominator for the Kilroy's List. And they said, will you commit to reading at least 40 plays every year by a woman, trans, or non-binary writer? And then will you nominate what you think the rest of us should really consider to be read, or if you feel it's underproduced, then we'll make a list and we'll tell everyone to come here and look. So do that. Go there. COVID's kind of been wonky with that because so many things haven't been able to be produced, but the list is still there. There's also a great thing, and if you're a playwright as well, this is a great resource called the New Play Exchange. And this is the largest digital library of scripts by living writers. These plays are categorized and searchable, just like when you go to the regular publishers. But playwrights can join and upload their scripts, synopses of their scripts, and you can look and see who's actually writing plays. And you can contact the playwrights directly. It takes a lot to get a literary agent, which goes back to you got to have a play produced. So this site currently has 9,989 writers listed and over 42,000 scripts. So if you're a playwright and you're like, I can't get my script up there, I can't, make yourself an account. It's very inexpensive, and put your plays out there. Let us see them. Be proactive on your own behalf. And this is just kind of funny to me. So if you're in a theater that's always about marketing, these plays don't have reputations, blah, blah, blah. Here's a list of like the plays that have won the Pulitzer or been finalists in the last decade. Look how many are written by women. These are all plays written by women. So if you're trying to find a way to advertise a play, you could say Pulitzer Prize winning play from 2014. It gives you a way in. The Pulitzer Prize is still held in pretty high esteem. The great thing about the Pulitzer is it's not based on production. It's based on the script, and it's nominated by a committee who selects. So isn't that great that we know there's all these wonderful stories out there? They just need to be produced more. So I just think it's funny. It's like, no, women don't write. Here are the plays. They're right here in front of you. You can go on the website and look at it for yourself. It's pretty wonderful. And it's a marketing bonanza. Okay, so let me check my time here. Okay, so that's my spiel. What are your thoughts? What are your questions? Let me stop my share. Anybody have thoughts, questions, concerns?
I have a question, Gaye, and it's because I know that you are an active playwright and constantly working on new works. And one of the things I think about a lot in my experience of theater and university programs is, in my experience, I tend to see programs that most of the students are women. And so it was great to see the data on the graduate schools. I would be surprised if on the undergraduate side it's probably the same. I'm wondering, there's this charge that I hear you speaking about as far as, we need to get more women writers. What about universities' roles? We tend to try to pick a season based on the works that have already been produced, but what about opportunities to generate new work and to create new voices and to plant that seed with this upcoming generation? So they're not just going to the same list, but they're thinking about generating works too.
Well, coincidentally, I think, well, not coincidentally, unfortunately, maybe because of COVID, in some of my other classes, like I teach directing, because students could not do their work in person with other people, I made them create their own plays and their own movies, kind of. So I think that really empowered a lot of people to think about how they could really express themselves in a lot of different ways. We sometimes think we can't be good at more than one thing. And I'm like, you can be good at a lot of things. So I do think that has helped empower some people just to be able to write, even if you write, they were writing like 5 to 7 minute scripts that they filmed of themselves. But I think a lot of them were just like, oh my gosh, I could actually do this. It's frankly, it's not easy to convince some people to do new work. It's sometimes difficult to convince people to do works by women, because it's a whole different world. Women write differently structure wise. They don't follow the same rules that those playwrights from the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s wrote. And so it takes a while to shift people's ideas over into, oh, this too can be a play. It may not be structured with a traditional plot, and it may not end up with a wrapped up tidy bow at the end, but that doesn't mean it's not a play. And so I think that's part of the problem, is we're limiting what we consider good based on antiquated examples. We already have an Arthur Miller. We have those people, a Tennessee Williams. We don't need to replicate that model, especially if you have someone who has an entirely different way to express themselves theatrically. Let's be supportive of that. Let's encourage that. So I am hoping that people will take this COVID chance to think about, how can I generate my own opportunities as far as expressing what I really think, which does require us all to sit down and go, what do I really believe? What would I really want to put my name on? What do I really want to put out into the world? And, that's really important, to continue to reflect and think about what we're doing and our purpose, and how we can use our talents and gifts and privilege and platform to help others, because, I really am about that. I sound kind of, mean sometimes, but I really am about trying to find a way for us all to exist together with a sense of unity. But that was a really long answer. Sorry. Other questions, concerns, comments? Shock, disgust, cheers, joy? Anything?
I'm not sure what I have to offer to this. I'm new to the whole thing. I'm new in Chattanooga, and I'm new to professionally being in theater stuff. And your question about what do I have to offer, I have thought about that a lot recently. My daughter is very much involved in theater and getting ready to work on her master's in applied theater in England, and she's always been very vocal about her opinions about gender inequality, not just in theater, but everywhere. And so I just started where we just celebrated the first year of our, it's a puppet company basically. And I am, my mission with it was to, or is to offer more opportunities for all voices to be heard, and for all creativity to be valued in every way it can. And so, I mean, this is certainly opening my eyes in a lot of ways. I'm still, I don't know what my role is exactly.
But you showed up today, and that's a supportive role right there.
Well, because it is important to me, and it's important for me to explore, as our keynote speaker was saying this morning, explore what it is that I want to, like you said, put my name on. Yeah, there's a lot of ideas that I have that I'd really like to explore with other people. I think that collaboration is a huge way to get our names out there, our messages out there. And that's, I mean, for me, that's very exciting, to look at ways to collaborate with others, whether it's because, my I guess my forte is the building of puppets, designing and building puppets. But we've done some really fun things this summer with an Arts Build grant that we were able to do some festivals and things. Sustainability Festival was one of them, which was a lot of fun. But trying to, I mean, I do think it's important that we start. It's not just, you know, it's not just women. It's everybody wants to be a part, or everybody needs to be a part of how we are co-creating our world. And I think arts is such a perfect venue for doing that, because it is all about storytelling, and it is about getting, or it can be about getting groups of people together and you know, finding out how we're connected and how we can connect more and how we can organize more and how we can put more and more, you know, beautiful stuff out there.
You know, I really love the image of, I love the name Arts Build, because it insinuates activity and construction.
Yeah.
It's not like Arts Couch, which, you know, we're all sitting around just going, let's see. It's about being active.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I'm hoping that when we come out of this COVID pandemic world, which I'm sure we will come out somehow, that maybe we can rush through with all of these new things, that we can rush through, and each of us will have new things that we contribute to organizations that then will have more things they can contribute, because, you know, we're kind of like little seeds right now. And at one point we are going to burst through the soil. And I hope I burst through and go, oh my God, I'm a zinnia. I love this. I thought I was a chrysanthemum, but now I am this. I mean, you know, we can surprise ourselves.
Right.
We don't have to limit what the past has given us already. We can just kind of push on through, and, you know, we can carry people with us as we go, which is part of our jobs. If we're carrying the audience with us, if we're encouraging collaborators, I mean, we can do that. But now I just want to get like a really big couch and have it built like a circle, and then we can all just sit on it. Wouldn't that be fun? When I win the lottery on Saturday, we're going to build a giant round couch and we'll put it in Miller Park, and we'll just sit there all together. I'm sorry, that was a tangent. Would that be a great thing? Like the arts couch. Not in a bad way, but just like, this is our break from when we're building. After we build, we'll break here at the arts couch. Other thoughts?
And inside the circle, we all get opportunities to play together, to do improv, to do puppets, to do all kinds of theater, so and other kinds of art. So yeah.
I definitely want to
with you.
play an instrument. Yeah, I need to play an instrument. I want a grand piano in the center. So in our final moments here, any other thoughts? Any other comments? I've enjoyed speaking with you all and sharing all my quotations, but I just like, I'm like a bumper sticker. You know, I should just have a bumper sticker business on the side and just make bumper stickers. Any other thoughts though? Comments?
I was just going to say, I thank you for your talk. It was really great. And I work at an organization that's very similar to Arts Build. So while I do not create art myself, we help support the arts. But I think also just as a consumer of art, you know, I can't say I was shocked by some of those statistics, but it is still, like you said, just seeing it, you know, now I'm thinking, okay, I want to go attend to plays, but I'm going to hopefully, you know, I'm going to be intentional about, oh, I want to see if it's a woman director or writer, and I want to intentionally go see that play. So I think it is, you know, like you said, more and more people know about this and understand this on all sides. It can hopefully push the needle forward of being more intentional about supporting projects and creativity that is more equal.
I mean,
So,
we're not on a different planet. You know,
right.
It's often like, well, you're a woman, you're on some other planet. We don't know where that is. It's a different theater planet. It's like, no, we're right here. You know, why do you find it so difficult to identify with us when we have identified with you for thousands of years in your place? What's the problem here? The couch will solve it. Convinced. Other thoughts? Thank you, Colleen, for that comment, and for TJ for your comment, and Lori for your comments. I don't quite know. I guess we could leave the room and go back to the main session. Is that how this works? I'm guessing so. So if we leave our breakout room, I think we go to lunch and then we return. But it was nice to see you all. Thank you all for coming. Maybe I'll see you all again sometime. Bye.